Well, thanks for joining us. It's 22 hours now since a Malaysian Airlines plane went missing on its flight to Beijing, and still no word about its whereabouts. There were 239 people on board. The flight disappeared from the radar as it flew over the South China Sea. Teams from Vietnam, Malaysia and Singapore are searching the area where the plane was last spotted. That was about 220 kilometres off the Malaysian town of Kota Bharu. The Vietnamese Air Force has reported seeing 2 oil slicks. They say they would be consistent with the kinds that would be left by fuel from a crashed jet. Well, it's now emerged also that at least 2 passengers on board were travelling on passports which have been reported stolen. The BBC's Jonathan Head has this report from Kuala Lumpur.
Well, it's been 24 hours almost exactly since flight MH370 departed from here at Kuala Lumpur Airport. 22 hours since it vanished from radar screens. And despite news of that oil slick and a very extensive search effort by the Malaysian authorities together with Vietnamese ships and an aircraft from Singapore, we are still no closer to knowing what happened to that missing plane. I should warn viewers that there is some flash photography in my report. What caused one of the safest airliners in the skies to disappear somewhere over the South China Sea? That's the formidable challenge now confronting the Malaysian authorities. So far, they're struggling to find even a trace of the missing Boeing 777. For hour after hour, family members were ushered in and out of the area set aside for them here at Kuala Lumpur Airport. But there was nothing anyone could tell them. This has chilling echoes of an Air France flight that vanished at night over the Atlantic back in 2009. It took 3 years of grueling investigation to pinpoint the cause of that accident, a faulty airspeed indicator. It could be a long time before what happened to MH370 is known.
Today's aeroplanes are incredibly reliable, and you do not get some sudden structural failure in flight. It just doesn't happen. It just won't happen.
The Malaysian Prime Minister came to talk to the families and let them know what his government is doing. The search will continue overnight and into tomorrow in the hope of finding the first vital clues. Well, given the fact that this airline is the pride of this country, the country takes a lot of pride in it, it's of enormous importance to Malaysia to find out what happened. It's also very important to Boeing. There are something like 1,000 of these aircraft in service. They're a backbone of the industry, and it has an impressive safety record. So everybody is putting their hopes on some clues being found soon, and perhaps some of the causes behind the missing plane.
As we tried to get that sort of detail, let's tell you a little bit more about the Boeing 777. It's one of the world's most popular long-distance planes. It's been one of the safest as well, in fact. There are more than 1,000 of them that have been put into service since the plane came out 19 years ago. And the first fatal crash only happened actually last July when an Asiana Airlines jet landed short of the runway in San Francisco. 3 people died on that occasion. As for Malaysia Airlines, well, it has 15 of these 777s in a fleet of about 100 planes in all. And this particular one, the 9MMRO it's called, have been flying for more than 10 years. No history of any major incidents either. The pilot on board, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, has been with Malaysian Airlines for 33 years. He's got more than 18,000 hours of flying experience under his belt. We heard from David Learmount in Jonathan's report there. I spoke to him at a bit more length. He is the Operation and Safety Editor for the aviation publication Flight Global. I asked him what he made of the details we've garnered so far.
Well, the most extraordinary thing about this accident is that although the aircraft was in the cruise, we know that by that time in its flight it would have been cruising. So things are pretty easy for the pilot. The autopilot's in, the flight management system, the computers are managing the aircraft's flight. Then all of a sudden, it's not there anymore, and the pilots did not make an emergency call. They should have had plenty of time to make an emergency call, because when you're up there, to get down there takes some time. So why didn't they call?
Yeah, so that would suggest it's not a straightforward technical fault. Where does that leave us after that?
The thing is, we may here be talking about sheer coincidence, i.e. not causality, but there are striking similarities between the disappearance of the Malaysian aircraft and the disappearance in 2009 of an Air France aircraft flying from Brazil to Europe over the South Atlantic. Just disappeared, like this one. Middle of the night, in the cruise, latest generation of airliners. Okay, one was an Airbus, the other was a Boeing, but it doesn't matter. They're both the latest generation of airliners. And in neither case did the crew make a radio, an emergency radio call, which would be a natural thing to do. Now, we don't know about what happened in the Malaysian case. We do know what happened in the Air France case because we've seen the report. They did recover the black boxes from the bottom of the Atlantic. What they found was that there was a momentary distraction for the crew. A little bit of icing iced up the sensors which tell the pilots the speed the aircraft's travelling through the air, which is essential for managing it. There was a momentary interruption, less than a minute. The autopilot tripped out, and then the pilots reacted with incredible surprise, and they put the aircraft into an extreme attitude.
That's David Learmount with his account of what may have happened. Now, many of the passengers on board were Chinese. Their relatives in Beijing have just been waiting and waiting for more information about the flight. The BBC's John Sudworth has more.
Some of the relatives of those on board flight MH370 have been brought to this hotel to be provided with support and comfort and what little information is so far available. At Beijing's Terminal 3 this morning, the realization dawned slowly that this was much more than an ordinary delay, although the International Arrivals Board continued to show it as such for some 6 hours before the information disappeared completely from the screens. More than 150 of those on board were Chinese nationals, and there has been some criticism in the country's press about the length of time it took Malaysian Airlines, almost 5 hours, to announce that one of its planes was missing. A report in an Italian newspaper suggests that one of those listed as being on board was in fact not on the plane. An Italian national is said to have called home saying he is safe and well and that his passport has been stolen. Speculation about what lies behind the disappearance of this plane is bound to mount. The weather is reported to have been good along the route, and the Boeing 777 is, of course, an aircraft with an excellent safety record. Its disappearance comes amid China's annual parliamentary session, a time of heightened national security, and President Xi Jinping has instructed airports across the country to tighten security.
John Sudworth there in Beijing. Just want to bring you right up to date on what he was saying about the Italian passenger listed as being on the flight, but in fact he wasn't. Well, that has been confirmed now by the Italian Foreign Ministry, his passport having been stolen last year. And also the Austrian authorities have confirmed that their national listed as being on the flight was not. So it does appear at least 2 people were travelling on that plane with stolen passports. Well, let's just get a little bit more about the circumstances around this mystery, as I think it is at the moment in many respects. Let's have a look at the weather conditions. What were they like at the time? Well, Thomas Schaffenacher from the BBC's Weather Centre is with me now. Thomas, it was a pretty clear day, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. That's certainly not a mystery. The weather conditions across that part of the world were very calm. We know that as the aeroplane left Kuala Lumpur, the conditions were calm over there. And also, as far as the conditions across the South China Sea are concerned, they were pretty calm as well. Now, let's have a look at the recent satellite picture across this part of the world, because that really gives us a very good idea of what the prevailing conditions were. Now, so this is where the aeroplane took off here. It would have been crossing the South China Sea, and you can see this area across this portion of the globe is very clear. The only area that's really stormy is just towards the south here, so we're talking about Borneo, across Java, Sumatra here as well. So this is where any aeroplane encountering this sort of weather would have certainly encountered some difficult conditions. But through here, in the last, not just the last 24 hours, but the last few days, it's actually a drought region. But one interesting thing that's going to be happening over the next few days is that the winds will be strengthening. So at the moment, the seas here about 1 metre high, the waves. In the next couple of days, we're talking about 2 metre high waves. So the conditions out at sea here where the aeroplane was last heard from, that's where the seas will be pretty rough. David.
Thomas, thank you very much indeed. I suppose that does not explain then really why it is that we still know so little about the whereabouts of this plane. Well, let's get some more from Na Pham of BBC Vietnamese, because Na's on the line now from Ho Chi Minh City, and that is now the point at which we've heard these reports of oil slicks in the sea. What more are the Vietnamese authorities saying about that?
Yes, I'm in central Ho Chi Minh City, and I can tell you that everyone is talking about this. Supposed to be an air crash by Malaysian Airlines airplane. It is past 11 p.m. local time, and obviously the Vietnamese Air Force has suspended their effort to search for the missing airplane just because of poor visibility. But said that they're going to launch a new rescue effort early in the morning. We spoke to some officials from the Vietnamese Navy earlier on who confirmed that they spotted 2 oil slicks off the Vietnamese coast. It's quite far away, it's about 100 kilometers away from the coast, and it's very difficult to reach with helicopters and airplanes, so they send some ships there, and they on their ways. We are not able to confirm at the moment whether they've reached the area yet, but if they haven't, they are going to reach that area very soon. So in the morning, we probably will have more information to come. What I can tell you that I've never seen any search and rescue effort launched by the Vietnamese government of this scale so far.
Na Pham at Ho Chi Minh City, thank you very much indeed for that. Obviously, as I said, it is night time. We shouldn't expect too much in terms of detail to emerge in the course of the next, certainly 2, 3, 4 hours perhaps. The wait goes on for the families of those passengers.